Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to pull back the Iron Curtain on a place so deeply hidden that for a long time it was known only as City 40. Today it's called Ozyorsk, and we're going to uncover a reality that honestly plays out like a Cold War spy thriller. Except every single terrifying detail we're about to dive into, it's entirely real. I want you to really think about this for a second. What if your city officially just didn't exist? Imagine tens of thousands of people completely wiped off all the maps. No postal code. Zero public records. Imagine living your entire life behind these massive electrified fences, guarded 24/7 by elite soldiers, with absolutely no connection to the outside world. I know, it sounds impossible, right? But for the residents of City 40, this wasn't fiction. It was just daily life.
Section 1. The Invisible City.
Okay, so let's look at exactly why a sprawling metropolis was created in complete secrecy in the first place. You have to picture the scene. It's 1945. The rest of the world is out on the streets celebrating the end of World War II, but the Soviet Union, they had a very different agenda. They were frantically starting their own atomic bomb project, and they needed a highly secure, completely invisible place to process weapons-grade plutonium. So they picked this remote spot deep in the Ural Mountains and literally built Ozyorsk entirely from scratch.
Section 2. The Golden Cage. Now, living inside those electrified fences presented a pretty staggering paradox. On the one hand, you have the rest of the Soviet Union in those post-war years just heavily struggling with extreme poverty and severe food shortages. But on the other hand, you have City 40. For the people inside, it was basically a paradise. The stores there were overflowing with exotic fruits, fine clothes, the kind of luxury goods you couldn't even find in the capital city of Moscow. And that extreme luxury was at the end of the day the ultimate high-stakes bribe. Why else would the government hand out all this stuff? This isolated little paradise was offered in exchange for one massive, unimaginable concession. The residents had to cut off all ties to the outside world. They were sworn to absolute secrecy, essentially agreeing to let themselves and their families be completely erased from history, just to enjoy that level of comfort.
Section 3. The Toxic Truth.
Well, it's time to peel back the curtain and look at the horrifying cost paid for those exotic fruits and fine clothes. Remember why the city was built? To process plutonium. And in that desperate rush to build an atomic arsenal, safety wasn't just a secondary concern, it basically didn't exist. The city recklessly discarded its highly radioactive waste directly into the beautiful surrounding environment, just pouring toxic runoff into the local water systems without even a second thought. This careless dumping literally transformed the local Lake Karachay into a city of the dead. Scientists today actually recognize it as the most radioactive place on Earth. Think about that for a second. It became so profoundly toxic that just standing on its shores for 60 minutes, a single hour, would deliver a lethal dose of radiation. It's a serene-looking lake that acts as a silent, absolute killer.
Section 4. The Kyshtym Disaster.
Let's trace how this localized dumping rapidly escalated into a completely unprecedented catastrophe. It happened fast. From the city's construction in 1945, it took just a few short years for Lake Karachay and the surrounding waste storage facilities to become a ticking time bomb by the 1950s. And then, 1957 hits and the inevitable happens. The careless buildup of highly volatile waste resulted in the unthinkable. It was an event that history remembers, actually scratch that, an event the government tried to hide as the Kyshtym disaster.
70. Just to really grasp the sheer scale we're talking about here, an underground radioactive waste tank violently exploded with the earth-shattering force of 70 tons of TNT. This was not some slow, quiet little leak. It was a massive, violent eruption of nuclear waste. That blast expelled a thick, radioactive cloud that ended up blanketing over 20,000 square miles of territory. To put that into perspective, the fallout silently contaminated the lakes, the rivers, and the homes of hundreds of thousands of people in the wider Ural region. So, what do you think the response was? Because City 40 officially didn't exist, the government's strategy was simple. Cover the whole thing up. Complete silence. It created one of the most mysterious controversies in history. We are talking Area 51 levels of secrecy. The global public was left totally in the dark, while thousands of unknowingly exposed citizens outside that golden cage just suffered the devastating health impacts with absolutely zero explanation or warning.
Section 5. A modern closed city. Now, you might assume a place this incredibly dangerous, this heavily contaminated, was evacuated and sealed off decades ago, right? Kept in the pages of history. But the reality is completely shocking.
Today, Ozyorsk remains fully functional, and it is still a closed city. Yep, it is still blocked off behind those imposing, electrified fences, and you still need special government authorization just to step foot inside. The Cold War might be over, but the Iron Curtain around this specific city, it never truly fell.
And what's truly heartbreaking here is that the residents who remain, they know. They are fully aware of the dangers. They're heavily burdened by what locals call tetcha fever, right alongside these staggering higher-than-average cancer rates. It's the undeniable consequence of living in a radioactive zone. Yet, remarkably, many of these residents absolutely refuse to leave their toxic home.
So why do they stay? Well, it's because generations of absolute secrecy have fundamentally become their identity. That deep isolation, the shared burden of keeping the secret, their incredibly unique history, it binds them together. The city is their home, and to leave means giving up the very thing that makes them who they are in the world.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. Would you make that trade? Would you choose to live in a secret city if it meant your family had every luxury and comfort imaginable? Or is the ultimate price of that silence, the hidden dangers, the sickness, the total erasure from the world, simply too high? Thanks so much for exploring this wild piece of history with me today. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.